Genshin Impact has 108 PlayStation trophies or Xbox achievements, which just feels weird to say. Which is more than most games, but considering the live service nature of it, and all gacha games for that matter, that's not surprising. I have all of these trophies of course, but that is not what this video is about. You see, Genshin also has in-game achievements. How many? 1,550. I got all of them for this video. Now, full disclosure, I obviously didn't start this challenge when I started playing the game, and so there's a lot of achievements I don't personally have the footage for. But to be honest, I'm not going to go through every single individual achievement. It's not the best way of going about this. A lot of them are sort of grouped together and basically the same thing, so it makes way more sense to talk about them in categories rather than me just going, this boss is easy. This quest, you need to follow the quest. Of course, when I have something specific to say, I will, but for the most part, this is going to be about the overall experience. I usually save this bit for the end, but as it's a longer video, I want to get it out of the way quickly. Please like, it helps the algorithm, helps small creators out. On to the video. So to start with, you need to do all the quests, be they main Archon quests, character story quests, or world quests. In the interest of saving us all some time, which we're gonna need, I won't go through each one individually and just say that if you're struggling to find where to go or whatever, which does happen for some of these, not a lot, but some, there is a good collection of video and text guides that are insanely helpful. I know not everyone wants to use guides, and if that's you, fair enough. My thing has always been that a guide won't give you the skill necessary to do what you need to do, but does give you the knowledge of what to do. That does kind of vary by game, that's just my general philosophy on it. It doesn't really apply here, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. A few of the notable world quests I'll quickly go over include the Aranara questline, which I'm sure just the name is bringing back a lot of memories for some people. Probably not good ones, but memories nonetheless. There is a lot to this questline, and I didn't find it super gripping. I remember getting to what I thought was the end only to discover that I was nowhere near halfway. Insane length of this quest, I'm thankful they've never done that again. This was though when I was at peak fandom, so I was playing an awful lot at once. Maybe I'd be fonder of it if I took breaks between it, but then it would have took longer, so actually maybe not. Honestly, the whole desert questline with Jet is much the same lengthwise, but that one is actually a lot better because that one's interesting and has better characters and whatnot. I think part of why these quests have the reputation they do is because if you don't do them, you're locked out of large parts of the region. In the Aranara one, you get the Zelda songs, which can be used to unlock areas with Dendroculus and chests and whatnot, and the desert one is needed for areas underneath the desert. The other really notable long questline is in Fontaine, and it's my favourite in the game. Could be just that I like the story of it more, but I did not find this one nearly as tedious as the Aranara one. Natlan also has a long world questline involving your Saurian companion, but each individual quest in that is really not a problem, pretty short. For the final quest where you say goodbye though, you only unlock it after doing everything else involving the Saurian. This obviously includes the majority, might even be all of the Natlan side quests, but there are also certain overworld puzzles that he's involved with that need to be done. There's only a few of these, but they are very easy to miss, and I know that because I missed a few. Thankfully, guides got updated pretty quick for this game, so I was able to find what I was missing in pretty decent time. Other world quests are typically a lot shorter, and achievements tied to them can never be missed. I didn't mention this earlier, but at no point is there anything missable, I don't think. But that is something I didn't check before starting this little video project, so imagine if I'd got to the end point and found something that was missable. That would have been pretty funny. You probably would have still seen the video, but I would have been angry at the end of it. To end this brief quest segment, why don't I quickly give my thoughts on the main Archon quest? That sounds like fun. Mondstadt, good introduction. Liyue, kinda boring until the end honestly. Inazuma, massively undercooked. I hope that when the anime comes out, whenever that may be, it fleshes Inazuma out a lot more. Sumeru, really liked it at the time, but probably a ball ache to replay, which is why I'm unlikely to make more accounts. Leave my memories alone. Fontaine, my favourite one, good beginning and end, but the prison segment in the middle is not fun at all. And finally Natlan, which I find the opposite. Really like the war in the middle, but the beginning and end I found lackluster. There's not much to add for quest achievements, but what does have a bit more to them are the hangout events. Yeah, remember these? You hang out with the 4-star characters, definitely not a dating sim. For achievements, naturally you need to get all endings for all the hangouts, but more notably some have extra achievements as well. As an example, during Hazo's one, there's a part where you can optionally go and talk to Goro, or in Faruzan's you need to read all these letters, or in Ningguang's you need to catch all the fish. These are pretty much always on only one route and are easy to miss, but thankfully it's really easy to reload to certain parts of these hangouts rather than starting the whole thing from the beginning. I'm not going to add everything up, but once you take out hangouts and quests, that is a lot of achievements taken out. Like, I'm sure it is a good few hundred at least. If someone else wants to count, they are more than welcome to and tell me, because I am not going to fact check it. I wanted to go through this video region by region. I thought that was a really good way of going about it. I thought I was onto something. But after looking at the list again, there really aren't that many achievements specifically for Mondstadt. So instead I'll take this time to talk about the general things that every region asks of you, as well as some early achievements you're probably going to get in Mondstadt anyway, with the few Mondstadt specific ones. So to start with, every region, or new area of a region if it came out a bit later on, will ask you to get a certain amount of chests, Seelies, or Seelie equivalents depending on the area, and also time trial challenges. The number needed will change depending on the size of the area, like Liyue is quite big so it needs 800 chests, while the first part of Fontaine only needs 240. Every region also needs you to max out the statue of the Steven by collecting all the region's oculi, which you are almost certainly using the interactive map to do, as well as activating all teleport waypoints and opening all shrines of depth, and also maxing out the reputation. There's quite a lot per region actually. Now that I've said those things here though, I will not be repeating them for every region, but just know they're needed for all of them, and it is something I personally do right away when new areas are unlocked. I tend to try hard new content as soon as it drops and get the achievements done in a couple days tops rather than spread it out more. I don't particularly think either way is better than the other inherently, it's just what works best for me. Getting on to some other general achievements, there are a bunch of book achievements for collecting all the parts of various books. They're generally either bought from shops or found around the map somewhere, and as the game is very well documented, it isn't hard to find a video or a guide to find them. In Mondstadt, I also did the archery achievements, of which there are only 3. Shoot a bird out the sky, and then 2 for hitting a weak point from a certain distance. While I don't know the exact distance, or even what measurement this game uses, I did these on the Lone Ruin Guard on the right side of Mondstadt. I think you have to go there for an early quest. Another thing I did mostly in Mondstadt is farming 800 ley lines. This is something that I think will come pretty naturally if you play for a long time and level a bunch of characters, as I have. Gotta get them level up papers somehow. Mondstadt is also one of the 2 regions to have the original bounty system, where you would need to track down the enemy within the time limit rather than just going to defeat them. Which is actually important, as there is an achievement that is a lot easier this way, that being for failing the mission by running out of time. Easy to do, just go in the yellow area and then go make a sandwich and come back after the time has run out. But I will say I don't actually remember if you can do this with the new bounties or if it's a relic of the old system. The Mondstadt specific achievements aren't really much to talk about. Unlocking Cecilia Garden, reaching the Nameless Island, climbing to the top of Storm Terrace Tower, these are all things that you are likely to do just through basic exploration. It's kind of unfortunate that the first region of the game, a region that people are quite nostalgic for, has such achievements. Considering it's a tutorial area though, maybe it was a conscious choice, though that might be giving them a bit too much credit. If I had to give a favourite Mondstadt achievement, and I will not be doing this for all of them, it would likely be the one for sitting in the statue's hand in front of the church, only because I think sitting in places you shouldn't and looking into the distance is really cool. Funnily enough, despite being considerably larger than Mondstadt, Liyue's achievements are much the same actually, as in there's not a whole lot specific to it. If I had to guess why that is, it would be the boring, simple answer of the game just having come out and thinking that all the quests having achievements as well as exploration achievements was probably enough without many area-specific ones needed. There are some though, such as reaching the floating island on top of that one mountain, which is genuinely one of my most memorable Genshin exploration moments. Not too sure why, it just really sticks in my head for some reason. Maybe just for the simple reason that, again, overlooking great distances is just kinda cool. There's achievements for unlocking a couple domains in Liyue, but I think that is just something people will do quite naturally. You can see domains on the map, and at very least you will want the fast travel, so even needing to do a little puzzle isn't much. While not Liyue specific, it's a great place to get all the gliding achievements due to the height of it. Specifically, it's that area to the top left of it, where if you are gliding, you get an updraft which can help you with gliding a great distance and gliding for 80 seconds. This area is also really good for the achievement for hitting an enemy with a plunging attack after plunging for 5 seconds. Again, just because of the sheer height of the area. Might take a few tries to line it up correctly, but it is certainly the best place that I can think of. Another thing you can do in Liyue is find the unusual Hilichurl, and there's an achievement for defeating him 50 times. How he works is there are a number of areas he can spawn, but only in Mondstadt and Liyue, and he'll spawn in 2 of these per daily reset, meaning you'll need to check all the spots twice to be optimal. What is the unusual Hilichurl? I'm not a lore master by any means, but if anyone knows why this guy is special, I would love to know. Liyue also has a really good place for the bored to death achievement for getting killed by a boar. There's a waypoint that as soon as you fast travel to, you immediately get hit by a boar, so you can go there with a low HP character and get them killed. Easily the best spot for it. Another thing not specific to Liyue, but there are a lot of restaurants there, and Zhangling is a professional chef, so we'll put the cooking achievements here because I don't know where else to put them. Also, yes, I know anime Gordon Ramsay, you don't need to comment it. There isn't too much to worry about. You need to master 40 different recipes and make 10 sus dishes. The sus dishes are from messing up the minigame, which I'm pretty sure this achievement has only ever been gotten intentionally, because seriously, who's failing this minigame? The 40 mastered recipes is the opposite. You need to make enough of a single dish to unlock the auto-cook for it 40 times. From research, didn't have this off the top of my head, there are 205 recipes currently in-game at time of writing, and if it goes up before this video comes out, I'm not changing that. So I would say try and do this with the lower rarity dishes, as typically they use more common ingredients, which will save you time in the long run. Liyue was the region that baffled me that this game was free when I first played it. It's something that I don't really think can be taken for granted, and yes, I know, gacha, they want you to spend money in other areas, but that's not the video for this discussion. Point being that this is a big game for no upfront cost, and no cost if you're sensible with your money. Now, I know you're probably thinking that I've left out quite a few big parts of Liyue, which is true, but let's be honest, they're more separated both in their aesthetic and where the achievements are in the list, so they will be coming up a bit later on, don't worry, I haven't forgotten. But first we'll need to head to Mondstadt's lone extension. That's right, it's Dragonspine. Real talk, when was the last time anyone went to Dragonspine? That aside, it's certainly a unique area, all covered in snow and that. I say this now when Snezhnaya could also be massively covered in snow, being the cryo region and all. But as of this video coming out, it's not out, so it's the only ice place. For Dragonspine achievements, there's a bit more to talk about. First off, as Dragonspine is the first sub-region I'm gonna call it, it does have a few things it introduces. First off is its own Oculus Statue of the Seven replacement in the Crimson Agates and the Frost-bearing Tree. It works the same as the statue pretty much. You offer the agates to level it up, with the max being level 12, and it gives you primos and other rewards, but importantly for this video, it gives you an achievement. Some of the Crimson Agates are actually tied to other achievements, such as the one at the top of Dragonspine, or from the chest you get from reading the Ragged Records and such, so I won't go into much detail on them. Once you get level 8 of the tree, you unlock the Crimson Wish, which will spawn mini-quests to get more agates, as there actually aren't enough in the overworld to max the tree. I consider this a bit of an unnecessary mechanic, and I guess the devs agree because nothing similar has returned in any of the other areas. So I think the reason that a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of Dragonspine is because of the sheer cold. Just being here is so cold that after a while, it kills you, which also gives you an achievement, die from sheer cold. Personally, I don't really like having to find a heat source when I'm trying to explore, just because I'm in Dragonspine. Also, hands up, who tried using a pyro character to get around it, because I sure did. Around Dragonspine there are 9 buried ruin guards, and talking to them will give you some lore bits I think, but for this video also gives you an achievement. There's also 8 tablets with symbols around Dragonspine to activate, after which you can make a claymore, which also gives you an achievement. I have no idea if this weapon is any good on anyone. I don't think I've ever used it. I barely use claymore characters as is. But I do wish there were more cool little objectives like this that actually gave you weapons, as opposed to just buying the blueprint. The last big thing achievement-wise in Dragonspine to do is the real boss of this area, the Great Snowball King. First off, you need to die to him, which is really easy to do just because he is the strongest enemy in the game. Second, you need to defeat him in his berserk state. This is when his eyes glow red. There is a third achievement for just defeating him, but I'm pretty sure that's tied to a world quest that you're going to do anyway. He apparently respawns every 12 hours and drops a lot of chilled meat for if you want to break your teeth. Overall, Dragonspine is an area I like looking at more than being in. Like, I love the little ice cave bit. I think ice caves are just so cool in pretty much any media. It's a shame that the only story relevant content is an event that happened when I wasn't even playing the game, so sucks to be me, I guess. I wish there was at least like a narrated recap over cutscenes of all these event quests in the game, especially when it suddenly becomes important to a main quest like 4 years later and I'm having to look up recaps online. Yes, there is a small text recap in game, but give me a full recap please and thank you. In my opinion, it really shows the weakness of having these time-limited story bits, and I'm not the biggest fan of how they're handled. Inazuma is a weird region to look at now. Due to how it's a bunch of islands as opposed to one big landmass, it really feels quite small, as a lot of the area is just ocean and you can't even explore under the sea like in Fontaine. An important thing to note about Inazuma is that it's the first major region to have an extra thing to level up. In this case, it's the tree at the shrine. This goes up to level 50 and takes electro seals, which you get from chests and maybe some other stuff, but for the most part it's treasure chests. As I tend to do a lot of exploring anyway, this isn't something I really had to worry about going out of my way to do. This kind of thing is something every region after Inazuma has. Sumeru has a tree, Fontaine has a fountain, Natlan has a tablet. They're all basically the same thing. I'm mentioning these here so I don't need to repeat it later on, you know the drill. Inazuma has a lot more achievements dedicated to it than the other regions we talked about so far. To start, around Inazuma there will be named samurai all with Iwakura in the name, and you need to defeat all of these guys for an achievement. I do like these little hidden objectives, even if I had very little idea why these guys had names and what their deal was until after I finished this hidden quest. Can't say I felt too great about wiping out this family, but hey, there's a health bar, probably not my fault. More animal focused now, you need to free the dog samurai from this cage. For some reason, this little mini island is like one of the most memorable areas in the game to me. Not sure why, maybe because there's a decent supply of handguards, which I needed to farm a fair few times. Freeing the dog isn't hard, there's a key around somewhere that opens it, and he is a very good boy indeed. Keeping on the animal theme, why not? Who aren't good boys are the little tanuki dudes who you need to deal with 15 times for another achievement. Off the top of my head, I don't remember if these guys are limited spawns. I assume they are because I haven't done any of these in a while or even seen them. There's an achievement for offering flowers at some hidden gravestones and some shrines on one of the islands. A lot of the achievements are like that here, little hidden objectives that you will almost certainly miss and need to follow a guide to do. I have no idea how people discover these things themselves. They must either be told ahead of time so they can make guides, or just scour every part of the area for every single possible interactable object on release. There's also an achievement for getting defeated by a Bale Thunder, which I had no idea was a thing. This is the damage over time lightning that damages you without an Electrogranum. I'm ashamed to say I probably legit died to get this because I did not remember this being an achievement, which means I got it legitimately, which is a skill issue. One of my favorite achievements in Inazuma is for defeating the ghost samurai that appear from electrified swords stuck in the ground. There's 10 of these, and while the fights themselves aren't special or anything, you're naturally gonna interact with the shining sword, especially at night. It really stands out, and if someone told me they got this without using a guide, I'd actually believe them, unlike a lot of the other ones in Inazuma. There's a few boat achievements, but they can all be described easily. Get boat, destroy boat, drive boat fast in straight line. You get 4 achievements from that. Final achievement I want to highlight in Inazuma is for beating Masanori within 30 seconds. Now this isn't hard if you've built characters, but for me when I first reached him, I couldn't even beat him. I found Inazuma in general a massive spike in difficulty because for whatever reason, I just didn't want to do artifacts like at all. No idea what I was thinking, honestly. I thought I could just not do it and the game would not punish me. Made the game a lot harder for myself unnecessarily. I actually got stuck on the ride and fight in the story. That's how bad I was at one point. No idea why I'm outing myself. Consider it motivation for yourself. If I was once that bad, and now I'm at least somewhat okay. Not gonna claim I'm top tier, I haven't spent the money to claim that. But I feel like I'm alright at actually playing the game. Tangent aside, Inazuma is a weird area where the achievements are all kind of hidden and hard to find without a guide, but the area you can explore is comparatively a lot smaller due to the islands not being that big at all really. It's also a place I spent a lot of early time playing in just because I was new, I could get primos easier, the characters were all Inazuma, so I naturally farmed there more. So I do have a bit of a soft spot for it. You know where I don't have a soft spot for? Enkinomiya. While I do like the vibes, I find it way too much of a hassle to navigate. Honestly, I'm not really a fan of any of the isolated areas separate from the main map, and I think the reason for that is because they're just so easy to ignore. Maybe that's just me, but outside of doing this achievement thing, I don't know if I've ever spent any real time here after the first time I unlocked it. Just looked it up, and apparently I farmed the boss for Shenhe, but I do not remember doing that. As it's a smaller area, the vast majority of the achievements are for quests, but there are some notable exceptions to that. First off, following on from the achievement mentioned earlier for defeating all the Iwakura samurai, there is a sword you can find in Enkinomiya, which when put in the ground with the other swords from those samurai, you get another achievement. There's also an achievement that needs you to sit in specific locations around Enkinomiya, as well as one for clearing the archery challenge from an NPC. This does bring me to a problem I have with Enkinomiya, and that is that everything is just too hard to find. NPCs are hard to see in this ethereal form, and I do think some only appear if you get close, which makes even finding the actual side quests a challenge, never mind all these little extra objectives that don't give you waypoints. Like sure, you will stumble onto some of them, I'm not saying you can't find any of this stuff yourself, but I'm confident in saying you won't find all of it. And that brings me to the final Enkinomiya achievement I actually want to talk about, that being for finding all the key sigils. These are your oculi replacements for Enkinomiya, but unlike all the other areas, you don't put them in one single place and get tiers of rewards. No, how the key sigils work is around Enkinomiya, there are patterns on the walls matching the patterns on the sigils, so you use the sigils on the corresponding pattern, and then generally activating all of them within an area, you get chests. These are such a pain to find. You don't get a scanner like the Oculus, so doing this without an interactive map is a real struggle, and that's before even mentioning that sometimes these sigils will be in the opposite light state, which is a unique mechanic to Enkinomiya. I like it when it's used for interesting puzzles, but when it's just getting in my way of exploring, I am not a fan. I was surprised by how big of a pain the seals were. I generally quite enjoy getting all the oculi when a new region arrives, so I wasn't expecting to dislike getting all the seals. But sometimes that's just how it goes. I was actually expecting way more Enkinomiya achievements, but I guess that's just indicative of how long I was lost searching for all the seals. I do think this is where I said screw it and started more actively looking up a lot more than I was previously. And speaking of looking up, we're gonna look down now. It's the Chasm. Chasm's next. The Chasm's collectible is Lumenstone Ore and Lumenspar, which is actually used to upgrade the Chasm's main gadget, which gets rid of all the ooze. If you don't clear the ooze and instead stand in it and die though, you get an achievement, so you can decide which is better, living or 5 primos. There are a bunch of achievements for finding papers, specifically mining records and Fatui logs, which I know it's not the most relevant thing to this video, but I just want to say that I really like the little Fatui subplot here in the Chasm. Like, I would love if Katarina came back at some point, even though I think it's implied she dies, but damn it, let a man dream. Anyway, to get back on topic, there's an achievement for talking to this guy, Taliesin, and telling him all the different stories you can. How this works specifically is everything you tell him is about a different world quest, or there is one for opening a gate, which also gives an individual achievement, so for the purpose of this video, that one's no extra effort. There are also 9 areas with glowing text on the wall that you need to find for another achievement. Worth mentioning, the Lumenstone either needs to be unequipped for this or have no power to see these. It's like a glow-in-the-dark pen, you know, you had them when you were a teenager, I remember those. Finally, there's an achievement for finding the secret exit to the underground chasm, which is only really notable for me, as I had no idea this existed until I watched a random, unrelated to achievements Genshin video. With fast travel, it's not that useful a thing, but it is cool and has nice rewards, and I refuse to believe that everyone knew about this but me. Despite being a lot more generic and normal looking, I actually much prefer the Chasm to Enkinomiya, and in thinking about it, it probably is my favourite of the sub-areas. A lot of that is due to the quests around it, both main story and world quest, but I also do like the design of the outer chasm. I know a lot of the stuff achievement wise is focused on the underground part, but I think the outside looks really cool with all the crystals coming out the ground. You can even play Minesweeper here, and that also gives you an achievement. Did not think I would need to learn how to play Minesweeper for a Genshin achievement, but we're full of surprises today. That brings us to Sumeru. Oh, Sumeru. Now look, I'm not a Sumeru hater by any means. In fact, the lead up to and beginning of Sumeru is probably when I was at my peak of excitement for this game. But looking back on it now, I really think that they did miss the mark on a lot of things. Most of which I mentioned already in the quest part, so I won't talk about how long and sleepy the world quests are. It's not Amphorius after all. So that was written before 3.3 came out, and I just want to say I take it back, but I'm going to leave it in the video. Instead, I'll talk about just how samey everything looks. Like, yes, I get it, it's a desert, and yes, there is a lot more to it underneath the surface, which I do like, but god, I wish there was more on top of it aside from just like a few pyramids. Achievement-wise, the first thing to talk about is tied to the Aranara quest line, so you know it's going to be an experience, and that is helping out all of the Aranara. Around the forest of Sumeru, there will be Aranara that typically need you to do things like play a song for them, or hit them with Dendro. There are 64 of these, and good luck doing this without a guide. I think I got a lot of these naturally just because of how much I was exploring the Sumeru forest when it first came out, but even then I was still missing a few. There's this fun one where you need to just spin these things round and round to get the chest, which I like as they're easy to miss but also just kind of make sense to be hidden where they are. There's a bunch of hidden objectives like this one where you need to power up ruin guards in order to get secret messages. The power core things are in static locations and are all typically around machinery, though of course static locations means you can look it up easy enough. Another achievement that I quite enjoy is one for following this Sumpter Beast. It takes ages and nothing special happens at all on this journey, but this is the kind of thing I would just do as a kid, just follow something and normally be disappointed when you hit an invisible wall or something, so I appreciate there's at least a small reward here. There's also one for taking a picture of this fancy tree when the tornado thing starts up. Can you tell I don't know the official names for any of these things, by the way? There's also this achievement for opening chests, which then gives you directions for another chest. Rinse and repeat, and then you get this achievement and a big reward at the end. Now all this little stuff has been in the forest, which is definitely the part of Sumeru that I prefer, but of course we also have the desert, which is home to maybe my least favourite set of achievements. They're certainly in the conversation. That being for collecting all the sacred seals and activating all the primal obelisks. Now there's a couple reasons that I dislike this, and admittedly a big one is something that is no longer super relevant, that being the map. I'm sure some people remember this, but there didn't used to be an underground map at all, nor was there any way to tell what level of the map an item was on. This made collecting everything a pain, but these especially just due to how many levels there can be in the desert ruins. They're also shockingly well hidden to the point that even having them show up on the map and looking up locations online, I was still managing to miss loads. Yes, I know, skill issue, use your eyes, 5head, shut up. There's also the murals in the first area of the desert, which you need to touch at night, as well as the chessboard in Desert 2, which you need to find devices to activate every piece for another achievement. The final, most northern part of Sumeru, where you get Sorush, is probably the best part of the desert to me. It's a shame it's the smallest. There's puzzles and challenges you need to do, all with Sorush, but let's be honest, this area's achievements are the least work. This area has its own thing you need to level up in the Amrita pool, and the items you need work like Oculi, except only Sorush can pick them up, so make sure you do that. You only need 36 to max the pool, which compared to the other similar items is really manageable. I decided to omit talking about some Sumeru achievements like finding all the report sets of papers in the desert just because I've talked about similar ones already and I don't want to keep saying it. If there's any more coming up, I will omit them too. Linking back to what I said earlier, Sumeru is where I was most excited, but I also know that it's where a lot of people's enthusiasm died. I have a friend who played since launch way before I started, and Sumeru is where he just stopped caring as much about the game. I personally put a lot of that on the desert, there's just too much of it. Would have preferred if we got a bit more forest as well. Which brings us to Fontaine, which I'll say up front is probably my favourite region. There's a lot of reasons for this. It has my favourite cast of characters, including my number one favourite in Farina because I'm basic. It probably has my favourite Archon quest, even with the boring prison bit. It has my favourite world quest line with the Narzizan cruise. Exploring underwater is a nice vibe, and unlike the Sumeru desert, they actually remembered to put interesting things above sea level as well. Yeah, I'm a bit of a Fontaine glazer, and if you disagree with me, well, that's fine. Opinions are just that. Opinions don't really matter, does it? A lot of the achievements are for the same sort of things we've already talked about, things like finding a collection of papers or certain unique collectibles for hidden objectives. In the interest of saving us all some more time, I won't go over all of them and instead talk about some more unique ones or just ones I like in general, like for feeding Berry Puff the Blubber Beast. It takes place over a few real life days, but I just like it because it's wholesome and this little dude is cute. Can we get him in the teapot, please? Oh, I'm going to have to talk about the teapot later. You need to buy all the items from the prison shop, which takes prison money, which you get from doing the abundance of prison quests. Not difficult, but some of them are hidden and out of the way. Speaking of the prison, an achievement that took me bloomin' ages was for getting the twice lucky fortune slip from a meal there. You could only get one meal per day, and this took me ages to get. Completely up to chance, which I'm not a fan of. We will talk about that a bit later on, don't you worry. There's also a final font a C for using this machine 16 times. Took me until writing this to realize it's 16 because that's the latest numbered Final Fantasy game, and Final Fantasy sounds like Final Fantasy. Do you get? It's very funny. I'm not very quick on the uptake all the time, I'll be honest. Fontaine also has a lot of achievements that need you to go to certain areas after finishing world quests. Previous regions had a few of these too, but boy, there's a lot in Fontaine. And in fact, a lot of the ones I needed while I was getting footage for this are in this sort of category. I'd already done the quests, but this unmarked final step had always eluded me. Fontaine also has the most forgettable isolated area. I don't even know the name of it off the top of my head. Just looked it up. It's the Sea of Bygone Eras, which is a much cooler name than this area deserves. Like, it's not straight up bad, but there's also just not a whole lot here, and that carries over to the achievements. Most are simple. If I had to name a favorite, it would be this one for doing this stage performance thing, just because the music that plays in this section is pretty cool. Also, it's not in the separate area, but the little underwater castle that leads to it, which is probably more noteworthy than the main area, at least to me. Now, if you know the achievements, you'll know that there's one big thing I've kind of omitted to talk about yet in Fontaine, and that's because I saved it for last, as I think it's low-key one of the best additions in the game. That, of course, being the local legends. Now, while these wouldn't reach their full potential until Natlan, they were introduced here, and they are like half good. By and large, the local legends can be divided into two categories. Either they have 7 gazillion HP and are not fun to fight at all, or they're more gimmick based and can be defeated much quicker with smart play. We'll start with the HP sponge enemies because they're far more simple to talk about. In Fontaine, these are the enemies that are mostly on land. Examples include Vivian and Ninian of the Lake, and Liam. Just Liam. Love that. This super strong guy has just a normal name. It reminds me of like the Xenoblade named enemies having relatively normal names considering they're level 80 giant gorillas. Anyway, these high HP enemies don't typically require much change in strategy from normal and just take much longer and hit much harder. I'm not the biggest fan of these ones. I've always said that giving an enemy more HP and attack values while changing little else doesn't make it more difficult, it just makes it tedious. I do like the idea of super endgame enemies around the overworld though. The local legends that are found under the water are a much different story, however. Now, if you just fight these normally, these do take ages to defeat. However, they all have a weakness to the different underwater attacks, which if used correctly can deal massive damage. As an example, the manta ray looking enemies will charge up with light connecting them, so if you use the blade beam skill to cut the connection, they take a lot of damage. The others all have similar things like this. The blubber beast takes a lot of damage if you hit it when it's invisible with the sonar. The crab needs you to use the shield to parry. This guy needs to use the bomb to block its charge, and the jellyfish needs you to use the bubble beam to launch its orbs back at it. I much prefer this way of doing local legends simply because you can still try and fight normally and it will take ages, so you're actually rewarded for using your brain. It also makes much better use of the underwater combat skills, which on the whole aren't really super important outside of these local legend fights. All the local legends only give one achievement in Fontaine just for defeating them, but that won't remain the case forever, so cherish it. As I said earlier, love Fontaine. Sure, it has its problems, but for me the positives far outweigh the negatives. Okay, hands up, how many of you forgot about Chenyu Vale? It's okay, you can be honest. First off, you need to do the Oculus equivalent, which is the Spirit Carp, and they work the same way. Not much to add at this point. For achievements, a lot naturally rely on unique mechanics to Chenyu Vale, like the weird statues and the moving broken pillars around to fix them, as an example. A lot of which will be gotten if you just try hard exploration like I do, though I must say I'm quite a fan of these fixing the ruin puzzles. Some notable ones that need you to slow down a bit, including this one for taking a boat ride. Fontaine also had a couple of these that I'm very antsy about. I just don't like sitting still and waiting, I want to get back into the game. Another fun one is for defeating this lava churl 3 times. Every time you defeat him, he gets stronger, so it's like he's learning. His moveset doesn't change or anything, but he does get a shield after a while. I just like the idea of this one, I'll be honest. Chenyu Vale also has a sole local legend fight, even though it's 2 enemies in one fight. You know what I mean, it's one fight. This one is a classic gimmick of if you defeat one and not the other, the first will revive after a while, so you need to aim to defeat them both at around the same time. If you've played a video game before, there's a good chance you've come across this sort of thing. They still have a lot of health and hit really hard, though you can use the elements against the other one using Swirl. that is really all I've kind of got to say on Chenyu Vale. There are more achievements, but nothing I feel the need to go in depth on. Apologies if you wanted a bit more, but Chenyu Vale is definitely the area in the game that I have the least strong feelings on. And the achievements aren't really different or interesting enough to change that. Still, I like the unique vibe of the place though, so that's something. So we're now at the part of the video where I'm gonna complain a little bit. Just a little bit. So did you know that daily commissions have achievements associated with them? I didn't until a ways into doing this and seriously made me question if I wanted to actually make this video. Obviously I did, but the thought was there. I'm just going to show various daily commissions in the background here because my thoughts are more general than related to any specific case. Now in normal gameplay I was never bothered with how daily commissions worked. I know before the change people were kind of sick of doing the same quests every day, but it was never something that really bothered me. Though I do like how it is now, it is a lot quicker admittedly. So breaking down these achievements, you have two types. Complete a daily commission and completing a specific task within a daily commission. The first is not that bad, you just need to complete the quest when you see it. The when you see it part is the annoying part. I don't know if all the commissions have the same chance of appearing or if some are more likely than others, but boy did it feel like the game would not give me the ones I needed for achievements. There's nothing you can really do to affect this either other than logging in every day and making sure you do all the actual quest dailies, as some are removed from rotation after you beat the whole line, which obviously means less possible quests to pull from. Assuming that's how the percentages work, I again do not know that for sure. Then there's the needing you to complete a task within commissions. Now everything I just talked about still applies to this as well. You need to log in every day hoping for the right mission, but let's assume you get the one you're after, right? You then have to ensure that you do the bonus objective for the achievement, which is often not really hinted at. Like there's often no marker in the game or anything, and if you forget or mess up or whatever, you're back on the roulette waiting game. But that's not all, because why would it be? Some of these dailies have different variants and there's achievements for doing all of them. As an example quick, there's one in Liyue where you have to help a guy look for signs of romance or something. You get 2 of the 5 possible signs per go at this quest. That means you need to do the quest minimum of 3 times, right? Wrong. It means at best you need to do this daily 3 times, because there's nothing stopping the game from giving you the same signs over and over again. This is not the only one that's like this, though I will admit they're less common in the newer regions than the older ones. Kind of feels like one of those old mechanics or features that has gradually been phased out, like the old bounty system for Mondstadt and Liyue. I think now is also kind of a good place to say that there are other achievements needing you to do things across multiple real days, such as leaving food for some foxes on Dragonspine, or the chest guy in Inazuma for example. In fact, there are a lot of these in Inazuma. They really liked time gating there for whatever reason. I have less problems with these because they're not random. You can progress with them every day as long as you remember. It's the random aspect of the commissions that I have a problem with, specifically when it comes to achievement hunting. Again, as just a regular mechanic, I don't really care. Spiral Abyss is the big endgame test for players. It's the hardest content in the game, so you might expect this section for the achievements to be the hardest, biggest pain of them all. That is simply not true though, and the main reason for this is that only one of these achievements needs you to go past floor 8. Now personally, where my account is, I can generally get all the stars on all floors except 12. Maybe 11 if it's a particularly challenging layout. I'm not super good like that. I'm decent but not great. Fun fact, I've never 36 starred Abyss. Nor do I ever think I will. I'm really not bothered either, and it's a good thing I'm not bothered because there's no achievement for 36 starring. You do need to beat floor 12, but the difference between simply beating it and getting all the stars is staggering. You will need 8 built characters, but I think people overestimate how well you need to be built just to win. You can have no good substats, but as long as the main stat is good, that'll be enough to win. Not for the 36 star, but who's got time for that? Not me. The other Spiral Abyss achievements aren't hard, especially if you come back at a much higher level. You need to beat floors 2-3, 5-3, and 8-3 without getting hit. I'm actually unsure if getting hit with a shield counts as getting hit or not, but coming back to this later, especially with years of power creep, though not as bad as some other Hoyoverse games, will make this a cinch. Similar story with preventing the monolith from taking damage in 2-2. If you come back at a higher level, you can probably one-hit most enemies at this early floor. The final Spiral Abyss specific achievement is for getting all the abyssal stars, which is basically 3-starring floors 1 to 8, which is just a case of winning as fast as possible, but the requirement on these early floors is really generous. A lot more so than the endgame floors. And that's it for Spiral Abyss as far as achievements go. I don't know if it's clear, but I'm not a fan of Spiral Abyss. If you like it, more power to you, but it's not for me. I don't have the patience to sit and grind perfect artifacts, or worse, spend money on constellations or whatever, for whatever characters the Abyss has been designed to incentivize you to pull for. I'm just going to pull for who I like. Thanks. If you were to ask me what the most undercooked part of Genshin is, I would probably say the co-op experience. It's not the worst thing ever, but it does feel a bit bare bones. Like, it would be cool if there were like raid bosses or something. Not sure exactly how that would work, but Tower of Fantasy did it, and that's Tower of Fantasy. The worst platinum trophy I own. Go watch that video if you haven't yet, by the way. Thanks. Co-op achievements are either really simple or really situational. The majority of them are just for beating all the bosses, as of now up to 5.0 in co-op mode. I just asked a friend to do these with me. If you don't have friends, just go into someone's world and ask them to do it with you. People are chill like that. Contrary to popular belief, the actual in-game Genshin community are for the most part super chill and friendly. It's just the ones on Twitter that are the most insufferable people alive. Other than bosses, there's also beating 100 domains in co-op. You can choose to matchmake a domain when you enter to farm, but as far as I'm aware, no one really does that. What I did instead was just repeat the same domain over and over again with that same friend. You don't need to collect the rewards, so it's not even a resource drain, which is good. You also need to collect 50 regional specialties in another player's world. Common courtesy is to ask before you do it, but in my experience you get a better chance of a yes if you ask when there aren't new characters just released. That covers the vast majority of the co-op achievements. All that's really left are some miscellaneous ones. There's the Heart Rock that you need 2 players to stand in, and sometimes it will give you the reward. It is really finicky. And finally there's these 3 chairs you need 3 players to sit in for another achievement. There's also the Tamari minigame in Inazuma, which I think I have only ever done for the achievements and didn't know it was here before then. And also switching your boat with another player, which I accidentally did in one of the co-op events, probably getting on for 3 years ago now. I think that's about it for co-op achievements. I'd say I'm disappointed, but given how co-op is at present, I don't even know what achievements you would add. Maybe doing reactions, but each player does one element, so it's an actual team effort. That's just spitballing. I know it's not that good an idea. In terms of actual co-op content I'd like, I already mentioned like raid bosses earlier, but would it really be that hard to just give us a multiplayer variant of Spiral Abyss? You don't even need to give me extra rewards, just let me pick which one I want to do and collect rewards from. Maybe they could add a way to trade artifacts with other players. They'd never do that. These are just some ideas. Let me know if you've got some as well, because I really think they could do more with co-op if they wanted to. Next up, we have one of the more silently useful parts of Genshin, at least for certain things, that being the Serenity Pot. You can get primos from the character furniture sets, increase your friendship levels without needing to do anything really, and also get level up resources and extra resin. Investing in Teapot has only been a net positive. Really, if you haven't done this, I really recommend it. The achievements can best be described as, for the most part, doing simple things a large number of times. To be specific, gather 2,000 pieces of wood by hitting trees. Obtain 50,000 teapot currency. Create 600 furnishings. Create 600 dyes. Learn 180 blueprints. Place 300 furnishings in one realm and gather 800 items with each of the little farm patch things. I don't see a need to go in great detail on these when it's mostly just a case of gathering the correct materials, normally using the interactive map, and then making the relevant furnishings. Similarly, you need to reach rank 10 with the Teapot Spirit, which is done by just making new furnishings, same thing as before applies. With those furnishings, you can then place them to get 20,000 adeptal energy in 3 different realm layouts for another set of achievements. There's also achievements for talking to your characters and getting new conversations. I think you unlock more based on friendship rank, but I don't actually know. When you have a lot of characters, it's easier, of course. Speaking of characters, you also need to get gifts from them. How this works is that different characters will like different furnishing sets and give you rewards for making them, as long as they're placed in the same teapot layout. These rewards are primos and ascension pebbles, so you can actually get a few primos this way, which I'm sure everybody wants. There's a couple things that are teapot related, but not actually in the teapot, if that makes sense. First off, use the net to catch 100 animals that can then be placed in the teapot. The annoying thing about this is that you can only buy 5 nets per week, so assuming you don't waste any, it's still going to take you 20 weeks or about 5 months to get. You can just catch the same few spawns though, that's what I did, just got the ones around the net shop in Inazuma. Last thing for Teapot is that you need to find and play 60 different Radiant Spin Crystals. These are the golden records hidden around the world that let you change the BGM in the Teapot as long as you have the record player. As of 5.6 when I'm writing this part, there are 152 on the map, and you can find them using the interactive map, but chances are you'll come across at least a few just by exploring. Especially at night, they really stick out in the darkness. The Teapot is a fun brief diversion, and unlike most other little side modes, it continues to give you benefits even after you're done with leveling it. Again, I would definitely recommend doing this for the rewards and extra resin at least. Of course Genshin has fishing, because as we all know it's not a real video game unless it has fishing. Step 1 is mute Paimon, because boy does she not shut up during fishing even more than the rest of the game. While you're there you might as well get that achievement for repeatedly muting and unmuting Paimon, which I think is the only achievement that can be got in the settings menu, so there's a fun bit of trivia. In terms of actual fishing achievements, they are both simple and easy to get assuming you actually do fishing, maybe you need the catch or something, I'm there with you, but they also take bloomin' ages. The first thing I did, because it was a PlayStation trophy, is fish up all 10 pages of Toki Alley Tales in Inazuma. These have a 2% chance to appear every time you catch a fish, specifically in Inazuma. This took me about 600 or so fish, so I'm pretty sure that means I was more unlucky than not. 2% is 1 in 50, so I think that's how that maths out. Fishing spots, like every other resource, are limited in world until a reset, so fishing in other people's worlds makes this go a lot faster, and it also has its own achievement as well. Other achievements include catching a nighttime exclusive fish, catching an ornamental fish, which is just a random chance when you fish up a normal fish, catch 20 different fish, buy a new fishing rod, make 20 bait, and catching 10 fish without leaving the tension zone. I got all of these while going for Toki Alley Tales, so I didn't even need to think about them. The final achievement for fishing is for catching 2,000 fish. As I said, I was at 600 or so after doing all the other achievements, so this was a big old grind. The world probably has several hundred fish in it. I'm not going to give exact numbers because I couldn't find any exact numbers online, and also they are adding more fishing spots every area and I don't want to give outdated information. This took me so long. In fact, I kept putting it off. This was one of the last achievements I ended up getting. If I was doing this video 100% chronologically, it would have been right at the end. Anyway, there's no real strategy for doing this other than just looking up where all the fishing spots are and maybe also learning which baits each fish type wants, though that's easy enough to figure out with no loss to yourself. Overall, fishing is this weird little diversion that a lot of players have done if only to get the catch and maybe the pipe as well from Fontaine. Which, side note, can we get the ability to get more copies of those weapons please? That would be pretty cool, so I expect to see that in patch notes a couple of years from now, as well as the ability to get event weapons that you missed. God, that would be nice. TCG was a game mode that I played a ton for like the first week or two, and I honestly don't think I've touched it since. That's kind of the problem with these side modes. Fun for a little bit, but then they feel very disconnected from the main game, likely to not scare off players who don't like them. But I don't know man, in that case just release them as their own thing. Not everything needs to be part of your big open world game. For achievements, it's mostly a whole lot of repeating the few mechanics of the TCG gameplay, like reactions and whatnot, but before you do that, you need to get to play a rank 10. You do this by just winning matches, either around the world or in the TCG pub. The rest of them, as I said, are for doing things in the matches themselves, varying amounts of times depending on the achievement. These are elemental reactions, using action cards, doing at least 8 damage in one action, playing summons, using at least 3 bursts in one match, tanking damage with shields, and defeating 2 enemies in one turn. The vast majority of these I was just able to get naturally without focusing them, but if you want to focus them, it's best to fiddle with your decks to go specifically for those objectives. Like for the burst one, you would use cards that have a fairly low burst cost, as an example. They're fairly self-explanatory. When I was playing this mode a lot, my team was Yoimiya and Xingqiu, and I actually don't remember who the third card was. You can get some really easy vaporizes with them, which makes winning pretty damn easy. So easy, I'm pretty sure that they nerfed it at one point. While I'm unlikely to touch this mode again properly, I'd love to own like real life versions of the cards just as collectibles. I have no idea if they sell them, but I think that would be a cool piece of merch, and they should definitely do that if they haven't already. That brings us to the superior endgame mode in Imaginarium Theatre. Yeah, for me this isn't even close. It's way more chill than Spiral Abyss and lets me use a larger pool of characters. I feel like Spiral Abyss is better for people who will hyper build a few characters, getting constellations and signature weapons and whatnot, while Imaginarium Theatre rewards people who build a lot of characters but maybe not to a super optimal level. It's not as necessary, frankly. I do have problems with it. God, I wish you could choose less than 4 characters to preserve their vigor, but by and large I have a lot more fun here than in the Abyss. The only somewhat annoying part is the level requirement of 70, but what I did is I just leveled a bunch of characters without building them, and I could use them as essentially a sacrificial slot to preserve vigor for my actually built characters. Achievements though are another story. Most are fine, but a few are just annoying. Not difficult, annoying. First though, you need to beat Visionary mode. This is just the longest one, being 10 floors and requiring at least 20 and up to 24 characters. Adding on to that, there's also an achievement for beating this mode after obtaining 10 Stellar. These are the little stars you get, and you get 1 per floor. You get these by doing an extra objective, normally for beating all the enemies on a floor within a stricter time limit. Unlike Abyss, these aren't tied to the amount of primos you get, so outside of this achievement, I tend to ignore them. Good chance you won't always be able to get this. If it's a rotation with elements that you don't have strong characters for, you'll stand little chance. I don't remember when I did it, but I'm pretty sure it was a pre-Movica world at least. There's also achievements related to toy medals, specifically for getting 9. These are tied to just beating the month's rotation of the mode. Not difficult, but I bring it up because I actually had or was in a position where I could easily get all achievements before Natlan released, yep, a year ago, but then this achievement needed 9 toy medals and you can only get 3 per month, and it mapped out that the 3rd month needed for the achievement began like a week after Natlan came out. Which was annoying, but I decided to delay the video by a year just so I would actually have every achievement. Getting to the more annoying ones that I mentioned, they're to do with the buffs inside the theatre. First up, beat the mode with 8 brilliant blessings. This is actually not too bad. You're almost always going to see one of these on an event selection screen, so just make sure you select enough. In fact, I got this without needing to grind it out on my very first run. It's way more free than it seems. What is considerably less free is the similar achievement for beating the mode with 8 mystery caches. For whatever reason, these are considerably more rare. I don't know the exact chance of them appearing, nor do I know if it's even readily available information, but this is one that I know people grinded out. I guess it's a little easier now that you can go 10 floors instead of only 8, but it's still a pain. It all comes down to luck, which is never fun for achievements to be. The most you can do to affect it is re-roll the events if you don't get one. I got lucky with this. I was putting off grinding it because I really didn't want to, and I just happened to get a run where I got 8 when I was just doing the mode on a monthly reset. I had got a couple with 7 before that though, and that is the main reason I didn't want to grind it. It's just so demoralizing and beyond your control. I feel bad for the people that didn't get as lucky as me, and you can't even spend money to increase your chances either. Probably shouldn't say that, I don't want to give them ideas. The final thing to talk about are the envisaged echoes. For achievements, you need to beat any 5 of them. First off, they're time gated, you can only get enough keys to unlock 1 per month, and you also need to have the relevant character at level 90 and friendship level 8. Considering a lot of these characters in here are not the most meta or used anymore, I hope you've been using the teapot to raise friendship. Told you teapot is useful. Now in terms of the easiest echoes, I'ma be real, I don't have a Blue's Clues. Deluxe is fairly simple if your numbers are high enough, and I also didn't struggle with Kaching, but that might just be because I actually use Kaching because she is fun to play. I've also done Chi-Chi, Kirara, Kazuha, Dia, Ganyu, and Jean, with only Jean giving me any real trouble. When I say real trouble, I specifically mean I couldn't beat it by just retrying and playing a bit better. I actually had to change my build. I had her built more as a healer, which this solo challenge did not appreciate. My advice is to try characters you like first, before moving on to characters you're less familiar with. As I said, I'm a big fan of Imaginarium Theatre, and I'm glad that Abyss isn't the only endgame mode anymore, as that was getting far too sweaty for my tastes. Next up, we have the Myriad Melodies rhythm game thing. After being featured in many events, no, I don't know how many, they finally added it as a permanent game mode and brought some achievements with it. The achievements themselves are not especially difficult, provided you have some rhythm, which I am always surprised whenever I get a comment by people saying they can't manage to do what to me are very basic rhythm achievements. This is not a slate or a slag off by any means. I'm sure that there's people who are good at fighting games who can't believe that I struggle with them. It's just an interesting thing to think about. That aside, you get achievements for beating the tutorial, which, it's a tutorial, it's not meant to be hard unless you're a game journalist. Other than that, it's a case of getting at least the Discantus rating on songs, which is hitting above 90% of the notes. This might sound like a lot, but I think that is mighty generous, especially considering you can do this on the easier difficulty of the songs, which has a lot less and slower notes. There's also community created scores that you need to do the same thing for, get the Discantus rating. Now, some of these are just insane for pros and whatnot, but there are also some that are literally just one note, certainly designed to just farm this achievement. This is one of those where I'm like, yeah, it's kinda lame, but I get it, right? I wish there was more mid-difficulty tier songs people made. Sure, there are some, but a lot are either just free or for experts. After doing that, you'll have enough of the currency to buy the score themes needed for the other achievements, and that actually brings us to the end of it. Now, I am a rhythm game fan, but to be honest, I really wish they did more with this mode. I mean, there are so many songs in this game, like so many. Seriously, just go look at the Spotify playlist after this. By comparison, the amount in this mode is probably not even 5%. In fact, I would say it's probably a lot less than that. What's that? You don't want to spend a lot of resources on this very small minigame? Fine, outsource it to an actual rhythm game company and make a standalone rhythm game with more songs and maybe even songs from your other games as well. I'd play a rhythm game with that Bernice TikTok song, sure, why not? Now this next chunk is going to be about things that you should be doing an awful lot of anyway. Those things are elemental reactions, which I would describe as the bread and butter of combat in this game. The elemental specialist category of achievements has some for basically every reaction except crystallize, sorry Geo. Okay, actually there's an achievement for getting 3 different elemental shields at once, but that's not hard. Can be done on slimes if you find 3 elements together, which isn't super hard, or just use crystallize with 3 different elements also on your team. Again, pretty easy. I'll say here very quick that each of the highest tier achievements for these next ones needs you to do the requirements that I say 10 times. To start though, there's a good chance you'll get some of these naturally depending on what characters you play. As an example, I mained Ayaka with Kokomi for ages and had a freeze team, so the ones for freezing 4 opponents at once and keeping enemies frozen for 10 seconds were incredibly easy for me, and I didn't need to think about them at all. Ayaka's alternate sprint is very useful for these as it can apply cryo without dealing any damage, which is useful. Same thing for Mona and Hydro, though I don't think it's as useful. I don't think I ever used it at least. Adding on to that, defeat 4 enemies with melt. I used Ayaka's sprint to get lower level enemies and domains afflicted with cryo, and then used a high level pyro character to get big melt damage. Alternatively, you can make use of elemental slimes for a lot of these. For Superconduct, floor 1 of the Abyss has super low level electro slimes, so I just used Ayaka's sprint to trigger the reaction, and as I was a good 70 odd levels higher, they actually died really quick. I feel now is a good time to mention that obviously some characters will make achievements easier. I've mentioned Ayaka a lot here as an example. This is something that is bound to happen with gacha games, and there's far more egregious examples when you get to the Natlan section, but everything should be theoretically possible with 4 stars. You'll probably just have way worse a time. Next up, we'll do Swirl, which needs you to trigger Pyro, Cryo, Electro, and Hydro Swirl within 2 seconds. The way I look at this, you got 2 options. Either use catalysts or skills on the Animo Cube, or use someone like a Sucrose or a Kazuha on all 4 of those elemental slimes at once. There is at least one area with the slimes, but this is another one I got a long time ago as Kazuha is one of my most used characters. And Overloaded is quite similar. I have a Clorand Overload team, so I'm pretty sure I got this with that, but you could probably also use floor 1 of the Spiral Abyss again with all those Electro slimes. Just use a low level, high EM Pyro character, preferably a Catalyst like Yanfei maybe. Again, for this you need to defeat 4 enemies with Overload within 2 seconds, but you also need to do that with Electro Charge. I used a low level, high EM Kuki in the domain with all the Hydro slimes, I forget what it's called. Dendro reactions, though, are where things start to get a little bit more challenging. First up, remove invisibility from 2 constructs at once using the Dendro reactions. Now, I don't have footage of this, but I'm almost certain I did this using Nahida's skill and then either Kaching or Raiden Burst, as I was defo running a Dendro Electro team during Sumeru. Are you crazy? It was the best thing to do. Then we have Burgeon and Hyper Bloom, and we're going to start off with Burgeon because, spoilers, Hyper Bloom took me longer than all the other reactions put together. For Burgeon though, I used Collei as a low level Dendro to set up Bloom cores on the Hydro Slimes in that domain from earlier, and then used Yanfei or Amber to set off the Burgeon. Hyper Bloom though, oh boy, same requirements as the others, which might make you think it's the same difficulty. You would be wrong. Let me put it this way. I have over an hour recorded just attempting this, and I know I did a lot of attempts for the first 2 tiers of the achievement off camera just to save some space. What was my strategy? Abyss Floor 1, Electro Slimes, Sucrose ult, Barbara normal attack to turn the ult Hydro, Dendro Traveler ult, High EM Kooky skill to proc the Hyper Blooms. This strategy did work. Sometimes, and to be honest, I have no idea the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful attempt. After seeing it could work though, I refused to change my strategy at all and was all in for this one. There may be better characters to use than these, but this was what I had at a low level because Abyss Floor 1. Can't be using super built characters for that. That brings us to the end of the elemental reaction achievements. I think I like the idea of these a lot more than how they're actually implemented. A lot of them are really hard to get naturally because of how tight the timing is, combined with the lack of groups of suitable areas in the open world. Most of these are easier within domains, specifically low level ones, which I think I was really lucky that I had low level characters that I could do these with. If you've leveled the characters that I use, then these strategies likely won't work, which is a shame. If I was to change these achievements, I'd either raise the timer to 5 seconds or lower the amount of enemies to 3 or maybe even 2 for some of these reactions. Now we're a ways into this video at this point, but you know what we haven't really talked about at all? Enemies, believe it or not. Now actually looking through the enemy related achievements, a lot of these I don't even remember getting, which implies that they were very easy. Examples of these easy ones include burning both types of Hilichurl shields, hitting Ruin Guards in their weak points with a bow, defeating a Lava Churl while it still has its Geo Shield up, breaking the Abyss Mage shields, defeating an agent while it's invisible, and so much more. Needless to say, I don't feel the need to go into detail on most of these, but there are a few that I think are at least unlikely to be gotten through natural play, like defeating a Cryosissin Mage without destroying any of the bugs. First off, there aren't that many of these in the game to start with, and then you actually have to be careful to not hit the little bugs. This is easier said than done. One strategy you can do is try and push the mage into the water so she drowns without even needing to risk attacking, but that is of course finicky, so up to you which way you prefer. I did not use the drown method. I eventually got lucky with hitting till it dies. Another one I ended up needing to go out of my way for is for getting hit by lightning from the Axe Mitterchurl. I'm generally not just standing around waiting to get hit, so that explains that one. What I think is maybe the most out of the way enemy related achievement is for defeating the Animo Boxer Fatui guy after it has used all its elemental shield abilities for a similar reason. I generally am killing the enemies fast. How this works is the boxer will put up a shield after a bit and you have to hit it with each of the swirl elements, so Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, Electro. There's also a couple of timing related ones such as defeating an Eremite while being taunted or a Rift Hound while it's roaring. There's a chance you might just get lucky, but it's equally as likely you'll defeat them too quickly in normal play. Another sort of finicky one is for getting a Hydro Fungus to use its bubble attack to trap a different element's fungus in it. A good spot for this is underneath the Terrace Room, as there are a lot of different fungi there. In the Sumeru Desert, there's an achievement relating to the Consecrated Beasts, or as you know them, those animals with way too much health. They all will at some point put down this little thing with a charging symbol, and for the achievement you need to charge each of them with the relevant element and stun the beast. In Fontaine there's an achievement for using Ozia or Numa to stun this ball guy out of his shield state. I only bring this up because it took me way too long to realize that all the Fontaine characters have one of these naturally and you don't need to find the item pickups. No, I didn't read the walls of text in the talent descriptions, how could you tell? You also need to freeze a water guy for 8 seconds. I used Ayako well after her expiry date, so to speak, so this wasn't hard for me. The final enemy achievement I want to highlight is from Natlin, and you need to stop the Weasel's charge attack attack with a collective of plenty ability. I used Veressa because she's one of the most fun characters to play, if only because she runs like Sonic the Hedgehog, which I am all about. Every character ever should run like Sonic the Hedgehog. If you haven't noticed, I've been doing mini reviews of each section or like my thoughts on it, and I don't really know how to do that for this section. How do I give my thoughts on the concept of enemies? Well, what I can do is say that as far as achievements go, I really thought there were more of these. I mentioned pretty much all the interesting ones, so that's a bit of a disappointment for the sake of the video, but maybe they saved all the good achievements for the bosses. And speaking of bosses, why don't we jump right into them? There are quite a few world bosses in Genshin. I'm not saying a number, so I don't have to edit this part in between writing and recording. More than I thought there were, to be honest. I think the best way to go about this is to go through each boss and talk about their achievements, because I think the majority of them are not going to be gotten through natural play. We'll start with Anemo Cube, which, fun fact, I guess, I have like over 100 of its boss drop and I have no idea why. I don't remember ever farming it, I've never needed to farm it, I wasn't pre-farming, I have no idea where they came from. Getting back to achievements, you need to turn the tornadoes all the different colours by using the swirl elements, Pyro, Hydro, Electro, Cryo, and then defeat it. You also need to absorb orbs from the enemy. These drop from its attacks like the aforementioned tornadoes and are typically in the air, so a character like a Venti or a Kazuha or a Wanderer will make this a lot easier. Do you see what I mean when I say a normal run of this boss is unlikely to get these? Moving right along to another early cube, we have Electro Cube. First up, you need to use reactions like Overload to break out of this electric fence barrier attack, which I have only ever seen when doing this achievement. If you had asked me this boss's attacks, I would not have said this, like, ever. You also need to get hit by all three parts of the rock, paper, scissors combo attack, which only requires proper character placing. Rounding out Mondstadt proper with the Cryo Regisfine, you need to both defeat it without destroying its weak point at all, which is easier to do if you bring elements that are worse, like Hydro or Cryo. It'll take longer, but no risk of accidentally damaging the weak point. But you also need to destroy the weak point while he's doing a specific attack. This spinning one that he typically uses after recovering from being knocked down. For this, it's the opposite advice. Use Pyro to weaken and destroy the weak point while he's doing this attack. My least favourite boss in the game is next in Oceanid because it's not a boss, it's just a rush of enemies, which is lame. It also takes bloomin' ages with no way to speed it up really. I've also seen it be a nightmare in several challenge runs, so there's another reason to hate it. For achievements, you need to defeat every type of Hydro Mimic it can spawn. There are 8 different types: the cranes, the birds, the boars, the squirrels, the ducks, the crabs, and the big bird. This is just a case of fighting it over and over again until you get them all. If you're ever leveling a character that needs Oceanid drops, there's a good chance you'll get this. The other achievement is for not getting hit by any water bombs dropped by solo mimics. I'll be honest, I have no idea how I did this. I assume you can get it by just not having these ones spawn, but I also think I've definitely seen people get hit by it and still get the achievement, so I think it's really finicky. Plus, I have no idea even how you're supposed to dodge the bomb. Weird achievement. Sticking with Liyue, for Pyro Regisfine you need to defeat it without breaking its weak point, same as the Cryo one. But you also need to destroy its little seed thing it spits out, which is really easy with a Hydro character. Geocube is another one where you can't do both achievements at once. You need to first off defeat it without destroying the pillars. This can be done with bow and catalyst characters pretty easily, it will take a while. The other achievement is for destroying the pillar that the cube is on top of 3 times in one battle. A good strat for this is to weaken all of them so you can just smack them once when he's on top of them to make the timing really forgiving. Primo Geovishap is a boss that, despite having fought quite a few times early on for Zhao, I always forget exists. You need to defeat it in all its elemental variations for an achievement, which is just a case of defeating it after it respawns and hoping it's a different element of the 4 elements that can crystallize. The next few achievements are all related to its primordial shower attack, which is also which I call my own shower time. First up, you need to never reflect it with a shield. If you don't use a Geo character like me, this is easy. The other 2 achievements do need you to use a shield. First off, you need to use a shield that doesn't match his element, so use a Pyro shield on a Cryo one for an example, to block that same shower attack, and the final one needs you to use the same element shield or a Geo shield to counter this attack. These are all just a case of setting up your party correctly and timing having a shield at the right time. Dragonspine's sole world boss is the Cryo Cube, and the first achievement needs you to defeat it while it's still down after breaking its shield by launching the ice rocks back at it. A high damage Pyro character is probably the best way to do this, but it's not that hard. The other achievement is for letting him fully revive 3 times before beating him, which is just a case of waiting around. A similar achievement for Pyrocube is for letting it reignite twice, but on the flip side there's also an achievement for defeating it without letting it reignite a single time. So again, gonna have to fight it more than once for the achievements. The final achievement for Pyrocube is for letting yourself get hit by all 3 hits of this attack where he changes his shape and goes in the ground, and then defeating him after. Should probably say now, I have no idea if getting hit with a shield up counts as getting hit for any of these achievements, so I guess don't use one just to be safe. PMA also needs you to defeat it fast after knocking it down for an achievement, but it also has some, let's say, more annoying ones. You need to defeat the boss without defeating any of the little helper dudes he spawns. To do this, you just have to wait for them to leave once they spawn, which takes a while, but they will go, trust me. Then for the opposite of that achievement, you need to defeat the boss only after downing all 4 of the small guys. Even though only one shows a health bar, all of them do take damage, so save that one for last and down the other 3 first before defeating the one with the health bar and then defeating the boss. All 4 don't need to be down at the same time, as long as they all went down at some point within the same battle. Magukenki is a boss I actually really like when they're not putting 3 of them in Spiral Abyss. If I had to pick a theme for his achievements, it would be timing and picking your spots. One of them needs you to defeat him while he is taunting you, which is this little come get some animation. You also need to never have him use his giant face block move for another achievement. From what I'm seeing, he uses this move to counter ranged attacks, so just stay close to him and either hit him with a sword, spear, or claymore. Finally, you need to beat him while never being hit by the Phantom Clone's attacks. Just keep half an eye on them so you don't get hit by an off-screen blade beam. Hydrocube's achievements are cool in that you can actually get them all in one run if you play right. First off, never destroy a water droplet yourself. The one that explodes on its own is fine as long as you don't damage it. Adding to that, you also need to take 3 of the healing orbs for yourself within one fight, which is obviously easier when you're not defeating the dude that spawns them. You also need to get hit by the dolphin attack, not that difficult or out of the way. And then finally, when it's reviving itself at the end, you need to not defeat any of the droplets but still stop them from reaching the boss to revive it. You can do this with Geo Constructs as long as they don't do damage, so Geo Traveler is much more likely to work than a Zhongli, for example. Electro Oceanid has achievements that I think are confusingly worded. For the first though, you need to beat it without being locked onto. I think as long as you dodge, there's a good chance you'll get this accidentally. I certainly did. Similarly, you need to not get hit by the cage attack. You'll get this with the other one if you're dodging everything. There's also an achievement to defeat this thing mid-flight, but considering it doesn't have legs, isn't it always technically mid-flight? Anyway, lower its health, and then when it goes noticeably higher into the air, shoot it with a bow character. Ganyu is maybe the best one for this, but any that do damage will get the job done. The final one is the one I think is confusingly worded, and that is you need to get locked onto before attacking it. What this actually is simple. Get hit by the circle attack before damaging it, but the wording is not clear enough to me. Though that could just be because I had not ever taken notice of the lock-on effect, even assuming I did get hit, which is unlikely as something pro gamer des. Golden Wolflord, aka the big dog, only has one achievement, and that's pretty weird. You need to destroy 2 of the skulls when it makes a shield within 5 seconds of each other. Bring Geo, get both of them close to being destroyed so there's less time in between destroying them. Really easy unless again, you never use Geo, like me. The Enkanomiya boss has 2 achievements that aren't too bad. First, destroy a wall when one of them is perched on it. I think this is pretty natural to do when you see them do it. And the second achievement is for not letting them go into the water. To do this, you need to defeat them at about the same time, which doesn't give them the opportunity to use the move. In the chasm, we have Ruin Serpent, whose achievements can both be gotten at the same time. You need to destroy 2 ooze blobs with 1 pulse, which is just a matter of positioning, and doing so will stun him, which will also give you the second achievement. As we get further in, these achievements seem to be getting a bit easier, so I wonder if that will change as we head into Sumeru for the Electro Regisvine. First achievement is for letting him do this big explosion move, which he does if you don't destroy the little cores he spits out, just don't destroy them. For the second, you need to break his weak point while he's doing the big hyper beam attack, so weaken it to low and then smack it with Bennett's skill or something while he's shooting. Another one of my favourite bosses for some reason is the Jade Plume Terror Shroom, and the achievements make a lot of use of the Dendro reactions added in Sumeru. You need to activate it by using Electro and then defeat him while he's taking a nap afterwards for an achievement. Following on, while he's activated, he will use one of 3 attacks before falling over, and there's an achievement for seeing all 3 of them, as well as an achievement for defeating him while he's in the middle of one of these. This achievement is called Nanomachine's Son, which is where I became aware that a lot of these achievement names are probably memes and references. The final achievement for the Mushroom Dinosaur is for setting him on fire with the burning reaction and then defeating 6 of the fungi that he pops out. As I said, love how this one uses the new, at the time, Dendro reactions for the achievements. The Eon Blight Drake's achievements really test your shooting skills. There's one for knocking out the sky by shooting its wing weak points, there's one for stopping its charging attack by shooting its head, and there's one for stopping its orb by also shooting it in the face. The final achievement is for defeating it while it's resistant to 2 different elements, which normally doesn't happen due to speed, in which you can kill it, but you need to hit it a lot with a single element until it goes up in the air, where you'll get the message that its resistance to that element has gone up. Then you'll wait for it to do it again, and then you can kill him. I like that the boss has the archery weak point gimmick that the other Ruin enemies have. For the Pyramid boss, I'm not saying the full name, you can't make me, you need to let it do its big charging attack for 1 and interrupt that attack, and then once it's down, defeat it for another achievement. You also need to hit him with Dendro Electro reactions while he's invisible to stop his charging and get another achievement. Dendro Cube is up next and is annoying in that you need to bring a Dendro character to beat it even though they can't do damage. Unless you want to faff around with Bloom to try and activate these last things, which I do not. For the achievements, you'll also be using Pyro and Electro. For the Pyro one, hit it with Pyro when it does the ball attack where he falls on you, and also wait for him to use the Ring of Vines attack for a second achievement. For his revival phase of the fight, you need to activate all the things with Dendro and then apply them with Electro all at the same time. The timing is quite tight but can be done solo, but co-op might actually help with the timing problems if you're struggling. 2 people have a Dendro and Electro character each can hit the things faster than 1. The Weenuts is a boss I don't know if I've ever fought outside of the endgame modes. Both achievements are to do with its Wind Bite Bullet attack. First one is just for stunning him by destroying them in his proximity. You can use the swirl elements to do this. The second achievement is for using each of the 4 different swirl elements on these orbs in one single battle. I recommend all bow characters if you can to hit these more easily. The Baptiste achievements aren't too bad. When he uses this attack where he drops 3 different elemental things, you can use the opposing elements to destroy all of them for 1 achievement, and you also need to defeat him while never breaking an elemental shield for another one. It's not up permanently, so you can still do some good damage in between, just less frequently. The final one for him is for defeating all of the different elemental combinations. He will always have 3 between Pyro, Hydro, Electro and Cryo, so just defeating him until you've beaten all the possible combinations. Finally, we get to Fontaine's bosses, where everything's better down where it's wetter. The dancers are one of the more unique bosses in that there's 2 different settings that give different rewards. Each of these forms has an attack that will imbue the boss with either Numa or Uja, depending on which one. You need to hit them with the opposite one for an achievement each. I don't know which Fontaine characters are which, but Farina has both, so that's who I used. For the last one, during the Copelia version, at some point there will be tornadoes spawned in, and you need to then lead the male looking one to shoot ice blades at you, hitting the tornadoes and making all 3 of them ice tornadoes. Big Crab's achievements can be gotten in one run. You need to lower his Pyro Shield's health bar to low and then wait for him to do this big AoE attack and then break his shield to interrupt it for 1 achievement, and then the second is for defeating him while he's down after breaking the shield. The Gravity Robots achievements need you to do 11 plunging attacks hitting the boss within a single 0 gravity segment, aka pretend you're a Zhao main for a bit. The other achievement is for not getting hit by a Gravity Ripple, which is this little wave attack that you can easily jump over with the reduced gravity. For the Seahorse, you need to first break the shield while he's in the air doing the lightning attack, so use a bow character like a Ganyu, or I guess Amber, as everyone has an Amber. For the other one, you need to defeat him while he is in the animation for bringing the pearl and his shield back, so get his HP as low as possible while you wait for this animation. For the Hydro Tulpa, the achievements are related to his absorbing mechanic. The first is pretty simple. While he's in the process of absorbing the little guy, aka when you can see the line connecting them, defeat the little guy and stop him. Do this twice and you'll get an achievement after winning. The second achievement is for defeating him right after he powers up from absorbing the little guy. You don't have long, so weaken his HP beforehand. You know the drill by now. Onto a boss that I have no idea who needs drops from it, it's the Robot Centaur. At some point in the fight, it'll spawn a thing onto the field. Destroy that before it explodes for an achievement. The other one is for destroying its shield while it's preparing to do its big Excalibur attack where it raises the sword. Use claymores to break the shield faster. Chenyu Vale has a boss that I forgot about, and for its achievements, you first need to freeze him when he imbues himself with Hydro and then hit him with Shatter. If you're sitting there thinking, what on earth is Shatter? Don't worry, I was very much the same. Shatter is triggered by Geo or Claymore attacks hitting a frozen target. After doing that, in the same fight, wait for him to use his Anemo attack, then use the swirl elements on the orbs to swirl them and get the second of the 2 achievements. Finally, we're on to the Natlan world bosses. It feels like I've been here since forever. Starting with the red flying dinosaur, first off when he's in his shielded state he will shoot feathers onto the ground. Destroy 2 of these for an achievement and deplete the fire shield he has in this state for the second. Next up we have Large Boy, with all his achievements relating to the fruit you can detonate. First one is simple, time your pyro hit on the fruit so that he eats it right before it explodes so it explodes in his belly. If you get the kill with the exploding fruit, regardless of whether it's in his belly or not, that's another achievement. Third one is for using the exploding fruit to trigger a melt reaction, so hitting with cryo and then explode the fruit in front of him. The secret source automaton configuration device is another boss that I just don't get on with for whatever reason. For achievements you need to first off defeat it while it's stunned after breaking the things on top of the pillars, and breaking those things is what gets you the other achievement, so that's also tickety boo. For the big mimic, the first achievement is fulfilling its bar while it's charging its super move. Simple enough, Night Soul state works best, so use Natlan characters. The other achievement is for defeating the mimic while it's imitating the forms of the Geo Vishap, the Terror Shroom, and the Seahorse. The mimic has 3 different attack patterns, and each of these 3 transformations can only appear in one of the 3. So if you recognize the pattern as matching one of the ones you've already got, you can just kill it and hope to get luckier on the respawn. For the Spirit Seeker, you need to destroy 8 of the ice clones it makes, so Pyro will naturally be best for this. For the Lava Dragon statue, you need to hit it with Pyro to fill both its bars and make it explode. The second secret source automaton needs you to continuously attack it with Cryo when it starts charging its bar to prevent it from charging for the achievement. Those last few have way less achievements and also would say simpler achievements, which I wasn't expecting. I think the bosses in Genshin are weird in that they occupy a very different role to bosses in traditional games. In those games, a boss is a roadblock or a skill check, whereas in Genshin and pretty much every other gacha game, they're almost designed to be quick and easy because you need to repeatedly fight them for materials. I think in a lot of cases the achievements reveal attacks that a good portion of players probably don't even know the bosses have, which is nuts. I don't know whether that makes the achievements good or the boss design bad or whatever, but it certainly is an interesting observation. But Mr. Trophon, I hear you cry, you didn't talk about all the bosses, you missed the weekly bosses. Worry not, fair maiden. Okay, that's unlikely, but still, worry not, for they are coming right now. So you know the funny thing about these is Dvalin and Andreas don't have any achievements whatsoever, which is weird. You would think there'd be one for like one cycling Dvalin, but nope, not a single one. So I guess we'll go to Child then. Side note, does anyone actually call him Tartaglia just normally? Like even his playable character name is Tartaglia, which I always forget because everyone, and I mean everyone, myself included, just calls him Child. Also, first time I saw it written down, I thought it was pronounced Childay. For the achievement, you need to defeat him without ever being hit after being marked. Child dies really quickly, so this is not an issue, and I totally got this early without realizing it. We'll do Ashtaher next because Liyue. As with other bosses with different elemental variations, there's an achievement for defeating all of his different variations, of which there are 4 different combinations, and the elements change every week, so if you start this now, it'll take you like a month. There's another achievement for defeating him while never having a shield. Easiest way to do this is to use a strong ranged attacker so you don't accidentally grab a shield while attacking. Signora's achievements first off necessitate a pyro character, as you need to break the ice cocoon at the end of the first phase without using the fire butterflies. The only other way to damage it is pyro attacks, I think. You also need to not destroy any of the heating and cooling devices in the 4 corners. This isn't too bad as you can stand by them anyway and still lower the weather bar, but be careful that AoE bursts and skills don't accidentally break them. The Ride and Fight has achievements that I actually like. It is my favourite weekly boss, so that might be playing into this. First, you need to only attack the correct clone during this attack. It's the one that shoots out the X instead of a single beam. The other achievement is for successfully avoiding all the waves in this attack by either jumping or dashing over them. That's the intended way, but I guess there's nothing stopping you from using like a Venti or a Wanderer to just float and avoid them all that way. Scaramouche's boss achievements are mostly in phase 1. You need to use both electro floor things to stun him for one, and then use all the different elements on the floor for another. There is one on phase 2, it's easy though. When he uses the big charge ball attack, just let him hit it and die to it instead of breaking the turrets and stopping it. I got this accidentally the first time I fought the boss, as I didn't bring anyone that could break the turrets, which was an oopsie I must admit. Apep, the Dendro Dragon, has one achievement for defeating him without getting hit by the shockwaves. This is just a case of going inside the shield when the game tells you to. The Whale is my least favourite weekly boss because it feels like it just takes ages. The achievements don't help with this, as one of them needs you to deliberately get swallowed twice, which in my experience is unlikely to happen naturally. The other achievement actually needs some skill. After getting swallowed, you need to defeat the guy that's inside the belly of the whale without getting hit. Why is this guy in here? I'm sure there's a lore reason, but I always thought it was a weird way for the boss to work. This is the case of dodging or shielding to avoid damage, and probably bringing a Fontaine character so you can lower the gauge faster. This is one of the more skill-based achievements for the weekly bosses. Arlecchino is also another boss that I quite like. She also has a few achievements. First off, when she inflicts you with the Bond of Life, don't get hit. This is easily dealt with by just healing off the status, which leads me into the next one. Hit her 4 times with the big damage attack after clearing the Bond of Life. Just drag out the fight or let yourself get hit by attacks that inflict it if you aren't going for both of these at once. There's also an achievement for getting ranged attack countered in the first half of the fight. Just use the bow's aimed shot and eventually she will counter enough for the achievement. The last achievement for her is for dodging all of this attack where she goes in the air. Well-timed dodges can get this done. As I said, I like this fight, so I learnt the timing. The Natlan Abyss Dragon thing will eventually use an attack where it cuts part of the battlefield away, and the Soul achievement needs you to let him do this 3 times to make it as small as it can go. Finally, we have the chessboard. For the Soul achievement, you need to do all the puzzles, for lack of a better word, in the first half of the fight. These are making the king charge into the pawns enough to break its shield, using cryo attacks ideally to break its electro shield, and then defeating the queen piece when it gets summoned. Weekly bosses aren't really something I normally do anymore, I just can't be bothered to be honest, but going through this for this video made me realise I think I probably like them more than the world bosses if you average them out. It's not really a fair comparison considering there are less and that they're all more story relevant than the world bosses, but I'm going to stick with that. Sure, why not? The last major region of the game right now is Natlan. Why did I put it here near the end rather than with the other regions? It kind of just felt like the category to end on, you know? Natlan, I think, has the best achievements overall of all the regions in the game. You have some whatever easy ones like watching the dance at the Children of Echoes, but by and large I think they are more rewarding, but that may be recency bias coming into play there. I know everyone's got an opinion on the Natlan movement gimmicks, but for this video, I actually really like them. Every tribe has a set of challenges that revolve around using the relevant ability either on a character or the corresponding Saurian, and you need to get the highest rank on all of these for several achievements, one for each tribe. They're fun little obstacle courses that make use of all the movement abilities. I am a fan. You also need to open every tribe's secret storage area with the rings. Each ring is made of 3 parts, and you get these parts from opening precious and luxurious chests in each tribe's nearby area. You also need to defeat these 2 guys, which aren't a boss or a local legend, but I guess they're similar to the named samurai in Inazuma maybe? That's probably the closest thing I can compare them to. We'll get to those local legends in just a second, but I want to highlight that Natlan is home to the only bugged achievement that I came across while doing this whole thing. There may have been some previously that got patched, but this is the only one that I came across. It was for progressing a certain way into the 5.5 main world quest. They patched it soon after so that it gives it to you if you teleport to a specific waypoint. Not a difficult one thankfully, but still interesting enough to mention. Okay fine, I'll stop stalling and I'll get to the Natlan local legends. These follow on with the same sort of philosophy as the Fontaine local legends, but unlike those ones, there's more than just the achievement for beating them. I'll go through all of these like I did with the bosses. First up, the Triple Fatui fight. I'm gonna skip saying that the first achievement is for just defeating them all for all of these local legends if that's good with you. Just keep in mind from now on when I say first achievement, it's really the second one. Cool? Cool. The second one for the Fatui is to defeat the Pyro Gunner one first and then the other two, which is easy enough assuming you can beat them all at all. Just focus him first. The final achievement is for defeating all 3 of them within 10 seconds. This is obviously difficult due to them having entirely too much health and dealing entirely too much damage. A good strategy for any of these overworld ones, and what I did a couple times, is to join a level 20 player's world and defeat them all within seconds. Is it cheating? No, it's working smarter, not harder. The next one is this Electro Turtle guy, and okay, this is probably cheating. You need to beat him before he forms the shield from taking hits. I have no idea the legitimate way to do this, but what I did was, and I have no idea if this has been patched, as Farina, send out the squad and then transform into a Saurian and you won't aggro the dude even though he's taking damage. Once he dies, it'll give you the achievement. I did a similar thing for the second achievement. You need to let him form the shield and then defeat him without getting hit by the counterattack. I lowered his HP with the Farina strat and then damaged him normally to activate the shield before finishing off the little bit of HP left from a distance so that I didn't get countered. This is probably the only achievement I can think of where having a certain character makes it basically free. I still have no idea the intended way of doing this, I guess just doing a lot of damage. Next is this woman who is just minding her own business. For the first achievement, don't get hit by the ice attacks. It's this one with the AoE circle. Move away if you see it and learn the animation, and move when you see that as well. For the second, you need to never let an ice can explode. So same attack, but instead of moving away, use Pyro to deplete the can's health so it never explodes every time the attack comes out, and then win. Next is this Fatui agent. First achievement needs you to only damage the real body when he splits into multiple. The real one shoots a flaming knife at you while the fakes are just regular boring knives. Second is the opposite. When he does the same move, defeat all 3 of the clones quickly before going for the real one. They're all Pyro, so use Hydro to do this as quick as possible. Moving along to the first local legend in the Shadow Realm, these ones are typically more gimmick driven, while the ones in the overworld generally just have too much health. For this one's first achievement, you need to break all the grapple points. Specifically break the 2 she's not holding on to first, and then the last one that she is. They're Dendro elements, so Pyro Archers are probably your best bet. Insane to think Amber might actually be good for something this late in the game. Second achievement is, I think, a lot easier. Just defeat her while she is in the air grappling. Lower her HP to low beforehand and then wait for her to go up to finish her off. He Never Dies is next, and has the best name because I can actually pronounce it. First achievement needs you to win while never getting hit by his big charge attack, and second needs you to interrupt the charging of this attack 3 times before winning. Both can have the same strategy of just never letting him use it. How you do this is with certain attacks. Supposedly Overworld works, but I found using Navia's heavy attack was way more consistent, and I assume any Claymore character would be able to do this. Also, Jean's skill can pick this guy up, which is funny. The next one is all about dodging. First achievement needs you to break his shield in a single attack. How this works is when the enemy attacks, there will be a white flash, and when you dodge on that flash, the number next to your character increases to a maximum of 6, and these increase your next hit's damage. On 6, your next attack will guarantee break the shield. If he ever puts it back up, you will again need to break it with only this one attack. Last achievement is for beating him without ever getting hit, which, as this fight is all about dodging, is actually not that bad. He doesn't have that many attacks you need to learn the timing of. I like this one as it really doesn't matter which character you use due to the unique mechanics of the fight. This next one is against the green, biblically accurate angel. First achievement needs you to defeat 10 warriors during the level up phase of the fight. You should aim for this anyway so you do more damage against the boss. Last achievement is again for beating him without getting hit. His attacks are pretty straightforward, but even with the buffs from the other enemies, he still takes entirely too long to kill, raising the chances of you messing up. I'm not as much of a fan of this one. I like the buffing gimmick, I just wish it made it a bit faster. Blue biblically accurate angel this time, and the first achievement is for winning with no characters being downed. Second achievement is when it starts absorbing the bubbles toward himself, you need to freeze the bubbles and then charge attack to break its hydro shield. I used Ayaka to do this, her dash can freeze and then you charge attack. 5.0's last one is this one relying on the rarely used counter system. This fight is all about learning timing. Some attacks have the white flash again when you can do a big counter, which is good because the first achievement needs you to counter so it does big damage every single time he does a heavy attack, aka one with the blue flash. Second one needs you to beat him without ever taking damage, which again is all about timing counters. It's not that different to the first. You're also forced into Traveler for this, so I suggest giving them artifacts to do more damage so you kill faster. I love this one actually, it's just so different and I like time encounters. It's like one of my favourite video game things to do just in general. Back to too much health though with Bronze Lock. First achievement is for breaking his core 3 times in one fight. Same as any other Ruin Guard enemy, his head will glow during the fight and that's when you shoot it. Other achievement is for letting him gain resistance to 4 elements in one fight before defeating him. He starts resisting the element that you do the most damage to him with, so have a 4 element team and only damage him with one character at a time to get this. You can tell when he changes because of the colour of the tubes on his head. Thankfully this guy can absorb any element, so Dendro, Geo and Animo are also on the table. Next up we have another one that I went into someone else's low level world to do. First achievement needs you to defeat her while she's doing the Fusion Nova attack, that's this one. While the second achievement needs the same, but also while never being hit by that move at any point in the battle. Reason I had to essentially cheat is just because of how much health she has. I was also embarrassingly dying far more often than to any of the others. This is the one I struggled on the most normally. Just lowering her HP took an age before even factoring in dodging that move every single time she did it. Back into the Shadow Realm now, this one revolves around Melt. There's a part where he freezes the torches around you and the first achievement needs you to not melt the ice and instead just melt his shield directly. Not that hard, I used Yanfei. Second one needs you to never get hit by the Obsidian Storm attack. This is the move it's charging when it freezes the torches, but if you just do the same thing as the first one, he'll never use it. Next one is unique in that the best way to deal with it is to bring as many healers as you can. First, you need to revive the little companion guy every time you can. To do this, just heal. So if you load your team up with healers and have all their skills and ults and whatever healing all at once, that is really good for this. And that's because the second achievement needs you to first have no one go down, but also, more importantly, have the companion use its most powerful laser beam. Power up the laser beam, you need to overheal it, or essentially just keep spamming healing. I really like the uniqueness of this one. You'd never normally have a team full of dedicated healers, unless you're doing like a challenge account or something. Next is the Fire Angel. First achievement is for beating him without anyone going down. Not very creative. Second one needs you to defeat him while he's floating in the air. First off, no legs, he's always floating. Second, how you do this is when the air drafts and dash rings appear, you can go up there, go through the ring and bonk him to deal damage, so make sure he's low enough beforehand. You can also damage him with normal ranged attacks while he's up there and it will still count. Next guy shoots out these little fire rocks and for the first achievement you need to defeat him without letting him destroy any of these himself. Kazuha is good as his skill is a plunge attack and one hits the rocks, but other characters can also get the job done. Just focus them as soon as they spawn and you'll be fine. The second achievement is just for never getting hit, which, boring. Learn the tells and dodge. 5.5 local legends begin with Peak, literally the peak. First achievement needs you to defeat him when he's stunned after destroying the rocks around him. You need to use the charging ability, so Varessa, Ian-san, or bring one of the charging Saurians near the fight area so you can use it for this part. I used Varessa and she is the easiest to do it with because of her Sonic run, but it is still very doable with those others. Second achievement is for not letting it use its ultimate attack, which you can prevent it doing by destroying the rocks in the same manner as for the first achievement, so not much variety there. Next is Goat and Penguin. First achievement is for having the two collide twice before defeating them, just a case of waiting it out until they use the right attack. Second achievement is for having them die at the same time by causing this same collision. So just keep them on equal health throughout the fight, lowering both enough to where this attack will take them both out. Next is Rock with Arms. Don't get hit by his Earthshaker attack when he hits the earth so hard that rocks launch out for the first achievement. Luckily, the tell for this attack is very generous and it's really easy to step back until it's done. Second achievement needs you to defeat it when it first enters a weakened state. How this works is you need to remove its Geo Shield and fill its Fury Bar with Pyro attacks to have it enter this state. What I did is weaken him with Navia while never using Pyro attacks until he was low enough HP, and then I filled the bar and quickly depleted the little HP remaining. This next one is another one I really like, similar to the healing one. You're going to want a team of shielders. For the first achievement, you want to have your shield reflect every attack in the fight while never being destroyed. This is why you want all shielders. You just stack them on top of each other so you're never unprotected. Last achievement needs you to reflect 4 shots in a row when he does this move, where he shoots multiple waves of shots. Same thing as before, just keep all your shields up and make sure that you reflect at least 4. Easy if you have multiple shielders built, a pain if you don't. The final local legend is the Electro-Accurate Angel. First achievement is just have no one get downed, easy. Second, you need to not let it gain half its electro shield, so let's break that down. It will spawn these little orbs throughout the fight, and if it picks them up, it will regen that shield. However, if you pick them up, you can use this pulse to do damage, and that is the best way to damage him. I used Mualani for this, but all the fast characters would probably work, like a Varessa or a Mabuika, or even non-Natlan characters like a Yelan would probably be alright. If he never has over half a shield, you'll get this achievement when you win. And that, finally, brings us to the end. So after all that, what do I think of Genshin Impact? Well, honestly, I am a fan. I know, shocker. I know that people do have a dislike for gacha games for very understandable reasons, but me, I've always been the mindset of, okay, what can I do without spending money? And Genshin gives you a load of content for free. It still baffles me how much there actually is to do in this game without spending anything. I know people will moan about monetization being pushed, but to be honest, it's really not. I really never felt this game was pushing me in that direction super hard. There's other games where the shop literally pops up every time you open it, and Genshin really doesn't do that. Back to the actual game part, I think Hoyoverse has a problem with their quests at points where there's just too much dialogue and not enough gameplay. Genshin isn't the worst offender, that would be Star Rail, but it's certainly worse at it than the likes of Zenless Zone Zero, as an example. But as a counter to that, I would say that when you aren't questing, Genshin offers a lot more in the open world, just by its nature. There's all these puzzles and treasures to find, and for some people that's not going to be their thing, they're going to want a more streamlined storyline along the beaten path, but for me, I have so much fun exploring when there's a new area released, and I will likely continue to do so. I like the combat, focusing on elemental reactions. It encourages playing around with different teams, even if yes, some are more meta, but I don't really care about that. As I said, I don't try hard Abyss or anything, and outside of that, being meta is completely unnecessary. When it comes to this 100% achievement challenge in particular, in a way, I was kind of let down. This is really not that hard a challenge. With well over 1,000 achievements, you'd expect me to have a few that would actually push me, but no, not really. The most memorable achievement for me was the Hyperbloom one, just because I had no idea why it was sometimes working, and sometimes not. It didn't even take that long, actual in-game time-wise, to do this. Obviously, things got added over the months in real life time, this has been in the works for well over a year, but that doesn't mean I've been actually playing anywhere near that amount of time. But why did I decide to do this? Was I truly this starved for content? Not quite. When I began this, it just seemed like a fun video idea. It's achievement related, it fits. But what this has turned into is kind of a gacha retirement video for me, or to be more specific, the gacha lifestyle retirement. I have logged in and done my dailies in this game for well over 3 years now, and in those 3 years I've done that with other games as well. The amount of time just doing dailies really adds up, and I just hit a point where I decided I don't really want to do this anymore. I'll still play the games when there's a new story or areas and whatnot, but worrying about having enough to pull characters and stuff to that effect, nah, I'm done with that. Basically, I'm going to play these games for fun instead of being trapped by FOMO. There's a wild idea. And besides, after this video, I think it's fair to say that I have beaten Genshin Impact. What do you mean a new region's about to come out? And that's the video. Thank you for sitting through all that. You're a real one if you're still here. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe if you want to see more achievement and trophy videos. That's sort of my thing. While you're down there, let me know your thoughts in the comments and tell me how many achievements you have in Genshin. That's a fun exercise. And please don't ask me to do this again for Star Rail or any of the other games. Thank you for watching. For now though, I'm off. Hunt them tropes. And I'll see you next time.